Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show, Red Pill Edition. My name is Leon Jones. Now, this evening, I'm going to make a two-part series on the Equal Rights Amendment. And the reason why I am doing this video is because there are two different outfits who have two different views on the Equal Rights Amendment. Now, if you're not familiar with the Equal Rights Amendment, it was part of the 19th Amendment that passed in the 20s that allowed women to vote. Now, tonight's article is by a feminist by the name of Jessica Newworth. Now, I'm going to post the link to the article under my video so you take a look at what I'm going over to see what you think about it, because from my personal view, I believe women have plenty of rights and they want more. Now, the title of tonight's video is Congress should campaign for constitutional equality. This is all from the article. But let me get into it, because it's very important as red pill men in MGTOW that you should understand what's going here. Now, of course, this article is only an opinion piece, but you have a number of women who think like this. Now, just recently, 3 days ago, on Tuesday, the Judiciary Committee's subcommittee on the Constitution held a hearing on the ERA, which the ERA is the Equal Rights Amendment. Now, the first hearing was held in more than 35 years. Now, when it comes to the millennial generation of young men and young women, they basically have no recollection of what the ERA was, so they are learning this for the first time. And this feminist believes that women do not have constitutional equality, so they're outraged. Now, the Equal Rights Amendment was written almost a century ago, just following the adoption of the 19th Amendment, finally giving women a right to vote. Now, almost 50 years later, Congress passed the ERA in 1972 and sent it to the states for ratification with a 7-year deadline. Now, following an initial fast wave of ratifications, 22 states in that same year had ratifications slow down. But despite an extension of the deadline in 1982, the amendment fell 3 states short of the 38 needed by the time the deadline expired. Now, the arguments against the ERA that were made in the 1970s grounded in fear are basically gone. The fear of women in combat has been replaced by a clear understanding that the exclusion from combat has hindered the advancement of women in the military who want and now have the right to serve in combat. The fear of gay marriage has been replaced by recognition of the right to marriage equality by the Supreme Court, and the belief that a woman's place was exclusively in the home has been replaced by the Work-Life Balancing Act millions of women undertake to have a career as well as a family. Some members of Congress, notably Representative Carolyn Maloney, Democrat from New York, have kept the ERA alive over the decades, and it has been introduced in every session since 1982. More recently, following the ratification of the Madison Amendment 200 years after its passage by Congress, a new strategy was launched to remove the 1982 deadline. Championed by Senator Ben Cardin, Democrat from my home state of Maryland, and Representative Jackie Speier, Democrat from California, this so-called three-state strategy came to life when in 2017 the state of Nevada voted to ratify the ERA. Now, the first state to vote for ratification has been Nevada, and this was the first time they did it since it happened in the 1970s. Now, State Senator Pat Spearman, who led the successful ratification in Nevada and who is one of the witnesses to testify today, sparked a renewed effort across the country to complete the ratification process. Now, in 2018, Illinois became the 37th state to ratify the ERA. Similar efforts are going on in many states. Or we can say they're ongoing in many states, and those states include Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, North Carolina, and Virginia. Now, the three-state strategy is now the one-state strategy, and the race is on to be the 38th state. Because in 2019, Virginia fell short by just one vote. Now, the greatest question most Americans have about the ERA is, why do we need it? Yet we know all women here in America are still far from equality in everything from economic power and political representation to civil rights and social status. Now, on average, women make 80 cents for every dollar that men make, and it's less for women of color. And under the existing law, the courts have held that an employer can pay a woman less than a man for doing the same work if the reason for paying her is less than what she was getting paid on her last job. Now, pregnant women who have been fired without effective legal recourse for seeking workplace accommodations, such as lighter lifting, sitting at the cashier, or even taking extra bathroom breaks, and also victims of sexual assault and domestic violence have been denied justice because the Supreme Court has ruled that there is no basis in the Constitution for women to bring cases to federal court. Now, the Equal Rights Amendment would help promote equality in two ways. Number one, by providing additional revenues, or let's say avenues of legal recourse, and by incorporating it into the highest law of our land, the message to all that sexual equality is a fundamental human right. Now, according to an ERA coalition poll, 90% of Americans support constitutional equality for women, including 90% of men polled and 99% of millennials. So equal rights is a nonpartisan issue that transcends politics, age, geography, and gender. Now, most Americans, 80%, think we already have constitutional protection of equal rights. Most countries in the world do, and it is hard to imagine that we wouldn't. But the Constitution was written by white men who owned land, and women were intentionally left out, as well as others. Now, the omission has helped to perpetuate a lack of support for women and engendered a culture that has allowed sexual harassment and other forms of violence and discrimination to flourish with impunity. Now, the Me Too movement has ignited a deep anger that is mobilized into a movement demanding fundamental change in the way women are treated. Now, those changes should start with the Constitution, and this process began in 1972 when Congress passed the Equal Rights Amendment and then sent it to the states for ratification. Now, Article 5 of the Constitution says nothing about the deadlines for ratification of amendments. Congress created a deadline for the ERA in 1972, and they extended it, and I'm talking about Congress, extended it in 1978. So Congress can remove the deadline altogether in 2019, enabling states such as Nevada and Illinois to act effectively in accordance with the will of their citizens. See, members of Congress who don't support the Equal Rights Amendment are on the wrong side of history and should be held accountable in the next election. It's time for the ERA. Now, again, this was an article written by Jessica Newworth, who was a founder and co-president of the ERA Coalition and the author of the book, Equal Means Equal, why the time for an equal rights amendment is now. She directs the Human Rights Program of the Roosevelt House Public Policy Institute at Hunter College. Now, again, I went through the article. And red pill men, IBMORs, SYSBM, MGTOWs. This woman wrote in her op-ed piece that women need more rights. Now, when I do part 2 from the Federalist, you're going to get a different spin. But what I can tell you from my point of view is this woman is delusional. She's probably one of the millennials out here. And the problem with the millennials is they don't want freedom. They want tyranny. They want the government to be in charge of everything. And you have women like this who actually believe women are working what we call a life-career balance. They're not. Women today are more bitter. They're in more debt. They have to work harder. They can't sustain the same type of lives that men can sustain because they're not built for that. And this 80 cents on a dollar, you go check the numbers out. It is not 80 cents on a dollar. Women and men don't do the same jobs. And the poll, and you have to understand who took the poll. How many people were sampled in the poll? You see, when you do statistics, you can skew them to validate your argument. How many men were actually polled? Because for the most part, when it comes to men, especially men like myself and other brothers who do MGTOW content that have gone through the system, understand that there is no true equality when it comes to men and women in this country. Women are the ones who are getting all the rights. Women get more money to go to college. Women don't have to sign up for the selective service. If we as men don't sign up for the selective service, we don't get financial aid to go to college. When it comes to the crimes of domestic violence, women and men are not charged the same. Let's take statutory rape. Well, men would get 25 years, women would get a slap on the wrist. When it comes to child abuse and child neglect, there are a number of instances where women have left their child or children abandoned. Nothing happened to them. But if it were a man, he would be persecuted. Andrea Yates, who killed 5 of her children, basically got nothing. She had post-traumatic stress disorder, she said. Well, had any man killed his 5 children, he'd have gone under the jail. When it comes to child support and alimony, women don't figure into the equation. But when women do, you have women who believe that they shouldn't have to pay alimony and child support. You see, what women really want is equity. They don't want equality. They want to be large and in charge without having responsibilities. Now, we do not need another ERA. Women have a right to vote. They have a right to go to school. They have a right to work. They have a right to do anything they want to do. The bottom line is women want a matriarchal culture. They want to be in charge of all the resources. And if you look at it, when it comes to women, and I'm talking about modern day women, they cannot handle their own lives. A number of them who have gone to college have a lot of debt. Many of them are not responsible when it comes to taking care of their children. We always talk about deadbeat dads, but a number of the children that women have today, the modern day women, are paycheck children. It's because the government incentivizes women to have kids out of wedlock, knowing that that safety net is going to take care of them. They give them housing. The government allows women to be irresponsible, where men, we have to be responsible. Now, when it comes to voting, Landowners, notice what I said, landowners could vote. So that means whether you were white, black, if you didn't own land in the past, you couldn't vote. And again, going back to the 80 cents on the dollar, well, I can tell you, men and women do not do the same jobs. In fact, if men and women got paid the same jobs, paid the same for doing the same job, women would still make less. Why? Because women take more time off because they have children. And you have some who don't have children and they take a lot of time off because a number of women really don't want to go to work in the first place. But they have to. Why? Because, again, feminism says you don't need a man. And at the end of the day, they do need a man. But when it comes to feminism, feminism has told women the ultimate lie that you can do it by yourself. You look in the black community and the Hispanic community, a lot of single moms out here. Well, the black woman, for the most part, has actually taken the term single mom and has made it a badge of honor. In fact, they call themselves the mother and father. See, we have Mother's Day coming up next week, and we have Father's Day. A number of the black moms believe that they're doing both roles, and if they were doing both roles, you would not have effeminate men and masculine daughters. But that's a video for another day. But as red pill men, you must understand that we cannot allow Congress to go in session and try to get states to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. Again, in order to ratify anything in the Constitution, you need 3/4 of the states to do it. That means you need 38 of the 50 states. But again, women have plenty of rights. They're going to school now. They're making money. But it seems to me that they're not happy. They want more. And no matter how much a number of women push the envelope, they will never be happy because they always want more. And the reason why they want more, because they really haven't had anything to fight for. See, because all the freedoms that women have been given to them by men. Men have been the sacrificial lambs in wars. Men have gone out and built the roads, the skyscrapers. Men have gone out and done the heavy lifting, such as garbage, electricity. Women haven't. And in areas where you have few women, now I've worked in the construction field, most of the women in that field are either holding the sign that says stop or slow, or they're driving a piece of equipment. They're not out there shoveling. They're not out there pumping that concrete. They're not doing HVAC. They're not fixing cars. They don't do dangerous work. In fact, men work outside where the risks are even greater. Women work inside. But at the end of the day, this article is all bunk because it's by another delusional millennial who went to college and was brainwashed by feminists. And what this feminist believes is she's a victim. She's not a victim. But they love to play the victim card. Again, this modern day woman is a child. She has no responsibility. She doesn't want any responsibility. She wants the benefits without doing any work. She wants the man to do the heavy lifting. And at the end of the day, she hates men. And that hate or vitriol for men is basically bundled up in envy and jealousy. Why? Because men, we are builders. We'll always be builders. We know how to do it. We're logical. Women are nurturers. And as a MGTOW We're red pill men. None of us hate women. But we just have to call women out on their BS. Because at the end of the day, they have plenty of rights. They don't need any more rights. What they need to do is be more responsible for their own lives before they start to run other lives. Because as men, all we want from a woman is cooperation. We don't want war. But women always want to do something to stir up some drama. When I say women, I'm talking about this modern day woman. Not all women are like this. But the question that I have to ask, what do you do about the women who oppose the ERA? That's coming up in the next video. But again, as a red pill man, we want peace, not war. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Song Radio Show. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. The link to this video will be, or to this article, will be at the bottom of my video. Go check it out. Because at the end of the day, as a red pill and MGTOW man, it's all about doing what we believe is fulfilling our prophecies. Because we are red pill and MGTOW men. And my name is Leon Jones. I'm out.